We often mistake a band-aid for a cure and mercy for compassion. But what if the very act of saving someone is exactly what destroys them? Imagine giving a lame man the ability to walk, only to watch him sprint towards his own ruin. Or granting a blind man his sight, only to find him gambling his precious life away in the shadows. Why do our greatest acts of mercy sometimes fail? Today, we unlock a profound mystery, the vast, uncharted distance between worldly mercy and divine compassion. We will journey through ancient echoes. A king testing his heirs with a mere handful of seeds. A grieving mother desperately searching for a single house untouched by death. A brilliant prince who filled an empty palace using only a spark of light. A ruthless killer stopped by a single, severed leaf, and the obsessive genius of Leonardo da Vinci, staring into the souls of the dead to paint the immortal Mona Lisa. Are you merely fixing the surface, or are you awakening the soul? Prepare to discover the ultimate secret of the true masters. Welcome to the mystery of mercy and compassion.
Today's profound talk is on the mystery of mercy and compassion. A worldly person usually sees mercy and compassion as the exact same thing. Everyone tends to feel that they are identical. However, the difference between mercy and compassion is as vast as the distance between the East and the West. Mercy is an emotion that an ordinary, worldly person can express, but true compassion flows only from the Sadguru, the true master. For example, if a person is suffering, if they have no wealth, no job, and no food, a merciful person will feel moved to help. This merciful person might be of a rajasic means, action-driven, or sattvic, that is, pure and harmonious, nature. Regardless of their spiritual state, when they see another person in pain and possess the financial means to help, they feel mercy toward them. According to their capacity, they will provide food to the suffering person. If the merciful person is a good businessman, they might also offer them a job. If they own a company, they might even teach the person a trade, employ them for life, and permanently resolve their financial struggles. This, simply put, is their mercy. Why does a person show mercy? Often, a person shows mercy to satisfy their own ego. They want to prove their greatness in society by showing off how many people they have helped. They might even build a temple or a mosque for God, but there is a hidden greed behind it. They do it so that society will praise them, people will sing their glories, and everyone will view them as a merciful person. Generally, a person with limited understanding is more drawn toward the external aspects of religion, such as temples and mosques, but deep down, they lack true spiritual knowledge. Because of this, their mind can be easily swayed or misled. However, when they walk this religious path and acquire wealth, a feeling of mercy does arise within them, because religion naturally teaches mercy. Yet, behind all of this, their personal self-interest remains. It is merely to fulfill this selfish desire that they like to be called merciful. Seeing their actions, ordinary people begin to consider them a great person. But only they truly know how they accumulated that wealth. When they spend their money, whether by donating it to a temple, building a hospital, or giving people jobs, there is no genuine devotion to the Lord behind it. Ultimately, it is nothing but an expression of their own pride and ego. But a compassionate person has no pride or ego in their mind, nor do they engage in such typical acts of mercy. Instead, they look deeply at the inner potential of the other person. They observe whether that person is moving towards God and reflect on how they are living their life. If they find the person worthy and receptive, only then does true compassion flow from them, and they guide that person on the path to reach the Lord. An ordinary person is entirely unable to tell the difference between mercy and compassion. To them, a merciful person and a compassionate person appear to be exactly the same. However, one must understand that profoundly compassionate beings, like Buddha, Mahavir, Nanak, or Jesus Christ, never distributed material wealth to anyone. The shower of spiritual wisdom they brought to the world cannot be compared to worldly wealth in any way. Whatever these compassionate beings do is done with complete selflessness. They lead a person onto the path of self-realization and show them the true way to ultimate liberation. You can understand this through a simple story. There is a well-known story from the life of Jesus Christ. He once saw a lame man and felt deep sorrow upon seeing his condition. Because he possessed great divine powers, he healed the man, enabling him to walk so that he could be free from his suffering and move about freely. Similarly, there is another story from his life where he saw a blind man and felt immense mercy. Out of this mercy, he used his power to grant the man his sight, allowing him to live a happier life. It is the worldly person who expresses mercy, and their nature can be sattvic means, pure, rajasic that is, action-driven, or even tamasic that is, ignorant. As long as they have the financial means and even a slight inclination toward religion, they can easily become merciful. Sometime later, many years after Jesus had given legs to the lame man and eyes to the blind man, he encountered the formerly lame man again. Jesus was astonished to see that the man, who could now walk perfectly well, was running, and he was running after a prostitute. Seeing this, Jesus stopped. He called the man over and asked, "Do you recognize me?" The man, who was once lame, looked at him closely and said, "You are the one who gave me legs. I recognize you very well." Jesus then asked him, "Did I give you legs so that you could chase after a prostitute?" But the man lacked any deeper spiritual understanding of life. He casually replied, "Since I have legs, I can run after anyone. I can do whatever I please." Hearing this, Jesus was deeply dismayed. He realized that by engaging in such worldly actions, this man would simply remain trapped in the endless cycle of life's fleeting pleasures and inevitable pains. Later, Jesus crossed paths with the man to whom he had granted sight, only to find him drinking alcohol and gambling. At first, the man did not recognize Jesus. But as he looked more closely, it dawned on him that when his vision was first restored, this was the very person standing in front of him. Jesus then said to him, "I did not give you eyes so that you could become a drunkard or a gambler." But this man, too, was completely lost in spiritual ignorance. He replied, "Then what else am I supposed to do? If you hadn't given me eyes, I was resting peacefully. Since you gave me eyes, this is exactly what I will do with them." The moral of the stories: the true purpose of sharing these two stories is simply this: even if a person is granted the physical ability to walk or the power to see, it does not change their inner worldly desires. Without true spiritual wisdom, a person does not walk the path of truth, and they ultimately spend their entire life trapped in ignorance. This is why a compassionate Sadguru, the true master, first tests a seeker. They deeply observe a person's inner feelings and intentions, and only then, out of their true compassion, do they show them the path toward the Lord. Everything they do is completely selfless. Through the power of spiritual wisdom, they uplift society, grant liberation to the individual, and show them the light to walk on the righteous path. There was once a king who had 4 sons. He had to choose only one of them to be his heir and become the next king. To test his 4 sons, he gave each of them 2 kilograms of seeds. Before leaving, he told them, "I am going on a pilgrimage and will return after 2 years. Keep these seeds safe. You may use them if you know how, otherwise, simply return them to me." When the king returned after 2 years, he went to his first son. This son had thought to himself, "My father gave me these seeds, so I will lock them safely in my vault and return them when he comes back." However, when he took them out of the vault, they had completely rotted and turned to dust. The father said, "You have simply reduced them to ash." The second son had sold his seeds in the market. When his father returned, he bought new seeds from the market and presented them to him. The father immediately recognized this and said, "These are not the seeds I gave you." The son had no answer to give. The third son had simply scattered his seeds on the ground. He took his father there and said, "I threw the seeds right here." But not a single seed had sprouted, because he had paid no attention to them and made no effort to understand how seeds actually grow. The fourth son, however, explained that he had carefully planted the seeds in the soil. He provided them with manure, watered them, and nurtured them deeply. Pointing to a vast, flourishing field, he said, "All of this abundant harvest you see before you is the direct result of the seeds you gave me." Seeing this, the father understood that this was the truly worthy son, the one who deserved to be the king. He realized that this son would completely support and uplift the people, bring them light, and serve the kingdom selflessly. With his deep wisdom, clear discernment, and the light of his inner knowledge, he would successfully guide his subjects along the true path of wisdom. Truly compassionate beings never perform miracles. They merely show the way, guiding a person so they can walk in the right direction. During the time of Lord Buddha, there was a woman whose 10-year-old son had tragically passed away. He was her only child, and she had no husband. Deeply devastated, she wanted nothing more than for her son to come back to life. She was willing to give away all her wealth and possessions just to make this happen. She went to many people, but no one could revive her son. Finally, a townsman told her, "Mahatma Buddha has arrived in the city. He will bring your son back to life." Carrying her lifeless child, she went to Buddha in a state of immense grief and sheer physical exhaustion. She pleaded with him, "Please bring my son back to life." Buddha calmly replied, "I will bring him back to life." Hearing this, the woman was overjoyed, and her face immediately lit up with hope. Then, Buddha said to her, "Go and bring 1 kilogram of rice grains from any house." As she started to leave, Buddha called her back and gently added, "Bring the rice only from a house where no one has ever died." She ran off immediately. She went from house to house in the village, and everywhere she asked, the people told her, "Forget about 1 kilogram of rice, you can take as much as you wish." But there have been many deaths in our family. Our father passed away, our mother passed away. She went to another house, and they told her, "Just last week, our grandfather passed away." Ultimately, no matter whose door she knocked on, she could not find a single home that was untouched by death. Disheartened, she returned to Buddha and said, "There is plenty of rice, but there is not a single house where someone hasn't died." Then, Mahatma Buddha gently explained, "When there is no house in this world where death has not occurred, then the Lord has not done anything to you that is unnatural. It is true that for some reason his death came early, whether he was ill or something else happened, you know that best. But death itself is completely natural. This is the very nature of the Lord's creation. This is just how it is. Accept this truth and walk on the path of the Lord, so that you may break free from this endless cycle of life and death." Hearing this, the profound truth dawned upon the woman. She finally understood. She went and performed the last rites for her son, and dedicating her life to the spiritual path, she became a devoted disciple of Mahatma Buddha. There was once a great king who had 3 sons. One day, he gave each of them a vast sum of wealth, 10 million coins, and assigned them a special task. He told them, "Each of you has your own separate palace. You have 10 days to completely fill your palaces with anything you choose. The less wealth you spend to achieve this, the better it will be. When I return after 10 days, you must show me exactly how you have filled your homes. When the king returned 10 days later, he went to visit his first son. Wanting to keep his expenses as low as possible, this son had gathered all the garbage and waste from the city and filled his entire palace with it. He proudly returned more than half of the money to his father. However, the stench coming from his palace was so foul and unbearable that it was difficult for anyone to even stand there. The king then went to his second son. This son had filled his palace with old, discarded items and returned the remaining money to his father. Seeing this, the father felt deeply disappointed. Effie. Finally, he went to his third son. This son had not filled the space with any physical objects or clutter. Instead, he had filled his entire palace with beautiful, radiant light. He had lit small lamps in every single corner, spending only a tiny fraction of the wealth he was given. He had wisely realized that in a short amount of time, a vast space can only be completely filled with light, and doing so requires hardly any money. The deep message of this story is this: to awaken the inner light within yourself, you do not need to spend any worldly wealth. What is truly required is clear discernment and spiritual wisdom. Cultivate that inner knowledge. Illuminate yourself, bring light to the lives of the people, and uplift your society, your state, and your country. Hearing these profoundly wise words from his son, the king was immensely pleased and immediately crowned him as the rightful heir to the throne. When a person reaches the absolute lowest point in their life, whatever that lowest state may be, they simply cannot fall any further. It is only from that point onward that they can begin to rise, and true growth can take place. Mahatma Buddha understood this profound truth very well. One day, he learned about a notorious man named Angulimal, who would brutally murder people, chop off their fingers, and wear them around his neck as a garland. Angulimal had already killed 99 people. He only needed one more victim to complete his dark vow. Understanding the spiritual timing, Mahatma Buddha realized, now, his direction can be changed. Everyone pleaded with Buddha not to go near him, warning that Angulimal would surely kill him. But Buddha did not listen to their fears and went to him anyway. When Angulimal saw him, he angrily asked, "Have you come to me to die?" Buddha calmly replied, "You may kill me, but before you do, please fetch me a few leaves from this tree." Without a second thought, Angulimal swung his axe, chopped off an entire branch with leaves, and handed it to him. Then, Mahatma Buddha said, "Now, attach this branch back onto the tree." Angulimal looked at him in utter disbelief. He realized that a severed branch could never be reattached. By committing such horrific sins, He had fallen to the absolute lowest point of human existence. Mahatma Buddha recognized this rock bottom and knew that Angulimal was finally in a state where he could understand the ultimate truth. Buddha gently but firmly asked, "If you cannot attach it back, then why did you cut it? If you do not have the power to bring a person back to life, you have absolutely no right to kill them. You have murdered so many people and are wearing a garland of their fingers." When Angulimal looked deeply into Buddha's eyes, he was profoundly shaken. All his cruelty melted away. He immediately abandoned his dark path of violence and became a devoted disciple of Buddha. He had reached a state from which he could fall no lower. It was his ultimate turning point, the end of his ignorance. With his deep inner vision, Mahatma Buddha understood exactly who possessed the potential to change, who was truly worthy of compassion, and who could be successfully guided back to the path of righteousness. This is the ultimate mystery of compassion. Recognizing this, knowing which person is truly receptive and who can be placed on the path of truth, is exactly what a Sadguru does. Using their profound spiritual discernment, a true master finds the right seeker and, out of pure compassion, guides them toward the eternal light. In the West, specifically in Italy, there was a profoundly great painter named Leonardo da Vinci. He was exceptionally gifted from his very childhood. You have likely heard of one of his works, the Mona Lisa, which is a world-famous painting. Even today, visitors pay a significant fee just to see it. Millions of tourists still travel to view this masterpiece, generating millions of dollars in revenue every single day. The story of Leonardo's life is quite extraordinary. Being highly talented from a young age, he began his journey by painting small statues and dolls. He would gaze at a sculpture for hours on end, observing it so deeply that it was as if he had become completely one with it. Only after reaching that state of deep connection and focus would he begin to paint. Because of this intense dedication, by the time he was just 15 years old, his paintings had already become incredibly famous. During that same time, there was another highly accomplished painter. He had created a massive and beautiful painting, but he had intentionally left one specific space empty. He wanted to fill that space with a portrait of Jesus Christ. He attempted to paint Jesus in many different forms, but he was never truly satisfied in his heart. His own creations simply failed to move him or capture the divine presence he was looking for. However, when he saw the paintings made by young Leonardo, he was deeply impressed. He went to the boy and said, "Please paint a portrait of Jesus Christ for me, so that I may give it the central place in my masterpiece." Leonardo found the most captivating image of Jesus and spent the next 6 months doing absolutely nothing but gazing deeply into it. He absorbed its essence completely. After 6 or 7 months had passed, one day, he finally picked up his brush. He painted Jesus with such profound emotion and divine expression that it felt as if Jesus Christ himself was looking out at the entire world. He presented the finished piece to the older painter, who was deeply moved and astonished. Ultimately, this masterpiece was admired, revered, and loved all over the world. Leonardo went on to become an extraordinarily famous painter. Over the next 15 to 20 years of his life, he accomplished many magnificent works. Later on, though it is difficult to say how historically true this is, it is believed that he decided to paint a portrait of himself. He spent 10 long years working on it, and it is said that this very painting is the world-renowned Mona Lisa. His dedication went far beyond the canvas. He had a deep desire to understand the intricate inner workings of the human body. He sought to discover exactly how the veins carry blood and how this flow ultimately influences a person's mind and the subtle expressions on their face. To pursue this profound study, he would bring diseased bodies from the graveyard. He would respectfully dissect them, carefully examine their veins and anatomy for days on end, and draw highly detailed sketches of everything he observed. In the end, through this immense dedication and deep, unwavering focus, he made monumental contributions not only to the world of science but to human society as a whole. The painting of the Mona Lisa that he created holds many extraordinary qualities. No matter from which angle you look at it, it feels as though she is looking directly at you. Everyone who saw this was deeply amazed. However, its second greatest feature is even more profound. If you look deeply into this painting, you will see a reflection of your own inner self. It reveals exactly what you are from within. It was crafted with such exceptional genius that whoever gazes at it has their true, internal nature revealed to them. Whether a person is divine and pure on the inside, or holds darker, demonic traits, they alone become aware of it, no one else comes to know. Such is the profound brilliance and sheer talent with which this masterpiece was created. Because of this profound brilliance, 10 years before his passing, a king provided Leonardo with a grand palace of his own. The king would visit him every single day, deeply trying to understand, where does this extraordinary talent come from? What the king actually managed to understand, however, is quite difficult to say. Although Leonardo's early childhood was filled with hardships, he ultimately blossomed into an extraordinarily gifted soul, gifting the world with the true manifestation of genius. He contributed immensely to the world of science by providing intricate drawings of the body's internal arteries and workings. But these were never just ordinary paintings, they were a pure reflection of his deep, inner nature and dedication. The profound spiritual truth hidden in this is, it does not take 10 years merely to paint a picture on a canvas. The true time is spent in completely molding and transforming oneself into the very essence of that creation. This is the greatest spiritual science. And this is exactly what a Sadguru does. Whatever task they undertake, they completely mold and dissolve themselves into it. Just as Buddha molded himself into pure wisdom, and Mahavir did the same. They accepted very few disciples, choosing only those in whom they saw true spiritual potential. They showered the world with compassion, not mercy. When a person is shown mercy, they eventually forget it after some time. But when a person receives true compassion, they are entirely transformed and become a reflection of the Lord Himself. Compassion arises from the very depths of your being. It is your hidden, inner power. Until you awaken and develop this power, the true welfare of society cannot be achieved. A truly compassionate person not only brings ultimate well-being to society and to themselves, but they also pave a clear path for others to reach the Lord. Thank you.